I think I unmuted it. I did unmute it. Hello and welcome to Great Train Layouts Live. I'm your host, Nick Gozarak, and it is so good to have you for this evening. If you're watching us live, if you're watching us on repeat, hello to you whenever it is. Welcome to tonight's episode where we are doing something different from what we usually do. We're shaking it up. We are looking at the Wisbech Upwell Tramway. But rather than just diving into building a train layout, we're going to do that shortly. We're going to do that later in the show. But we're going to start by looking at the actual Wisbech and Upwell Tramway, which is to say we are going to be going on an end-to-end journey of the 6-mile tramway to get ideas for what this real-life route was like and to see what we might use in the creation of a train layout based on this. It is so good to have you guys along for the ride. Hello, John Overman, Millennium Modeler, Nika, White Star. Seeing a lot of some familiar faces. Probably, finally a proper route for the tram by Cam Scott after 9 years. Yes. So, before we get going, some housekeeping. You'll notice if you're used to the show, we don't have music for today, but that's deliberate on my part. That's because I really wanted a classical soundtrack, but I wasn't able to find a classical soundtrack that wasn't copywritten. So if you look in the link to the just in the link of the description, links in the description. In the description of this video, you will see the links to classical music. I recommend clicking on the first link first. That's Vivaldi's Four Seasons. You can't go wrong with that. And that is a nice music bed for what we will be doing for the first part of the stream. And then we have some nice classical tunes. There's a second playlist that I recommend clicking on. That should cover the 3 hours of driving along the tramway we have tonight. Because in terms of royalty-free stuff, I couldn't find something that would do the trick. You can't be the classics, so I recommend checking that out. Also, I want to give a huge thanks to the sponsor of today's live stream, and that is Rapido Trains UK, because they are producing the Wisbech and Upwell trams. Yes, these lovely J70 trams, like you see here, are being produced in double O scale. And actually, they're also making pre-orders to do an O-scale version of just the tram. But they're doing tram packs, which is going to be this tram and the 2 bogie coaches. And those pre-orders are due February 6th. So link in the description for where you can order those. We'll talk about them more and see some really cool renders of that a little bit later in the show. But with all of that housekeeping out of the way, let's fire up the sim. We are in Trainz Railroad Simulator 19. This is the Wisbech and Upwell Tramway, and I am going to be your engineer / tour guide for our trip along the tramway tonight. And the goal with this trip is to kind of do a little bit of sightseeing. I'm going to be also referencing my copy of the Wisbech and Upwell Tramway by Peter Pay. If you are a fan of Toby the Tram Engine, yes, we have to get that out there. Obviously, this is Toby. This is where Toby was based on. But the real-life history of the railroad is so cool. There's 3 books in particular I use. So I should also mention, this route that we're driving tonight is my creation. I built this route over a period of about 3 years. And it feels so good to be releasing it to you guys. Finally, for those of you watching live, there's a link in the description where you can download this route for Trainz Railroad Simulator 19. If you're watching on replay, it should be available on the download station, both for Trains a New Era, as well as Trainz Railroad Simulator 19 with base sessions. Read the description for required files. But in terms of what I used to research the route, this book here, Wisbech and Upwell Tramway by Peter Pay, you can find it even in the US. It's easier to find copies in the UK, but that is a really great read and includes so much information. I also would recommend, if you could get copies of it, this is also pretty easy to find, Branch Line to Upwell by Andrew Ingram. Some good photos in here and good information. And then also another good source, the Wisbech and Upwell Tramway by Chris Hawkins and George Reeve. This one was harder to get. It appears on eBay occasionally. But again, photos that you'll see in this that you won't see in the other 2. But if you only get one, the first book is definitely the one that I recommend. So I'm going to be occasionally referencing that. If you have questions about the real tramway, other than is it electric? I get the Thomas reference. Feel free to ask, and I'll try to look up answers or see if I know the answers offhand. Let's get to it. So first, our journey on the tramway does not actually start on the tramway. It starts in Wisbech North. We'll get started with our journey here. So we're going to get backed up. I'm going to use easy DCC mode for driving tonight because otherwise I feel like it's going to be really hard to multitask. Although this is actually a very calm route to drive. But this is Wisbech North. This is a goods yard where the mainline trains on the Bramley line would bring wagons to be interchanged with the tramway. So this is something that there's not a lot of photos out there of. Even in the books, there aren't a lot of photos or information. But it is, I modeled it in the sim because it is part of the story. Now, for a train layout, this is probably part that I would skip because you could really replicate it easily with staging. But if you want something that replicates the interchange between lines, then a yard like this has a lot to offer in terms of switching livestock and so forth. I feel like I'm getting a bit ahead of myself. So while we are backing out of the yard, we're going to be backing out of the yard onto the main line and then joining the tramway over in Wisbech East over here. But let's talk about kind of the broad strokes history of the tramway. If you haven't seen my At the Rail Yard review on it, I recommend checking out that video as well. That provides a historical overview of the Wisbech and Upwell. But the overview is that in the 1870s, you were still experiencing the railway boom in England, but there were towns that were not yet connected. So Parliament passed the Tramways Act of 1870 to enable light railways to be built to help get smaller towns connected. So the Great Eastern Railway decided to build a tramway from Wisbech along what was called the Bramley line to Upwell was the agreed upon terminus. It wasn't the original terminus. They built Upwell. They thought they might expand. They never did. And so that was largely built to connect these farms at this very agricultural area with all sorts of produce being grown to larger markets and bigger cities. So this route is primarily the traffic that you would see. There's passenger traffic up to about 1927. And then a lot of freight traffic, a lot of vans like we're hauling behind our tram today. And that would be for hauling produce. So we have empty vans we are going to take to Upwell for being loaded. Hi, Nick Train. Hello, Fourths and Death Mister. Good to have you all with us today. This is, junctions like this is where I'm really grateful that there were some really good maps to work with. And I'll show you, after we're done with, after we've completed the tram ride, I'll show you a little bit of what the route looked like in progress, give you a little bit of a behind the scenes of how I made what you see here. But having maps was invaluable because trying to be able to model junctions like this, it was so nice to know that I had the right material to work with to get it right. Because, again, couldn't find any photos of anything along these lines. Nick Train, in regards to the railway series, have you noticed which set bears a striking resemblance to Far Courses? Yeah, probably. I mean, if you look at so obviously the reason a lot of people know about the Wisbech and Upwell Tramway is because of Toby the Tram Engine, aka the Class J70 tram, originally Class C53, when they were built by the Great Eastern Railway at their Stratford works. But they became J70 under LNER, and that's what they're more commonly referred to as. And the J70s, a six-wheeled tram engine, very boxy, very distinct look and shape. The Reverend Audrey lived nearby and was a parishioner, I want to say, nearby in, I think, Elmbridge. So he had the chance to ride on these trams, and that was the inspiration for Toby the Tram Engine. Okay, I had to do that. I had to do that. So, now we are briefly on the main line, running the opposite direction as we are about to connect onto the tramway. So this is prototype operation. This is covered in, I believe, the Peter Pay book, how the trains would reverse onto the main and then pull forward for being able to enter the tram. So here we are entering Wisbech East. This was the Great Eastern Railway's train station from, oh God, I'm spacing on when it was built. It was before the tramway and lasted to after the tramway. So the tramway was in existence from 1872 up into 1966. The station outlived that, but the station is no longer there. This is where the passenger trains would begin their run on the tramway. It is also the location of the sheds. So the sheds for the tramway are here, as well as a carriage shed over here. A nice modeling scene in its own right. Quick pause to appreciate this water tower. I am not much of a 3D modeler, but I made that water tower because it is such a distinct shape, and it was easy enough. So, patting myself on the back for that water tower. So now we are on the tramway proper. But we are paralleling the line to King's Lynn. I will turn down the steam sounds if it's a little hard to hear me. Is that too soft? You guys let me know if the volume levels are good. What program did I use to make the water tower? I used Blender. If you're going to get into 3D modeling, Blender's a great start. It's a free program. Highly recommend it. Okay. Now, something cool that we're coming up on here. This is where the tramway is going to diverge from the main line. And this is a chance to appreciate riding inside a J70 tram. Thank you for confirming the audio levels, NPK. So, we are going to come to our first grade crossing on the tramway, which is protected by this signal. So we have to ring our bell to let the signalman know that we're here in that signal box to the left that we passed by. Nope. Wrong key for the bell. And there we go. Now we can proceed on the tramway. Now this scene is one of my personal favorites here on the tramway. I love the amount of activity. And it's a very modelable scene because we're coming around a tight curve. One of the benefits of modeling the tramway, you've got short wagons, short locomotive, so you can really squeeze it into some tight spaces. And this scene here, this is us having the kind of close-up view of it. We'll zoom out in just a moment so you can see a wider view of what it looks like. All right, so if we have a wider look at this scene, what we see is a really lovely scene where we're paralleling the road. This is classic tramway. We are paralleling the Wisbech Canal. This was the original form of transportation in the area, and the tramway helped to put that out of business. And we've got the lovely bridge in the background there. A very modelable scene. I don't know if modelable is a word, but I'm going to make it a word now. And so now we're paralleling the road for a little bit, and we're about to cross over the canal here at New Common Bridge. This grade here was notorious amongst the drivers of the tramway. They hated it because it's about a 2.5% grade, and it's from 0 up to 2.5. In winter, it would be pretty atrocious to try to climb that, so they'd try to get as much of a running start as they could so they wouldn't stall out on the grade. But it's a lovely summer day here, so we shouldn't have much issue cresting that grade. And now we are going to cross over the canal. One of the things I really love about Trainz 19 is the ability to have this walking camera so that we can really appreciate the tram from eye level. So this route is being released both for Trainz: A New Era and TRS 19. What we're playing with tonight is the more recent, the newest version, which is TRS 19, and that allows us to make use of all these extra camera angles. On the left, we're going to pass by one of the many fields. These are the fenlands. Very ripe agricultural area, so we're going to pass by many fields. We're also passing by an orchard. So there's the layout that we're going to be building tonight. We're going to really try to capture the spirit and the feeling, the vibe of the tramway. And having orchards and fields is an easy way to set the scene. The walking camera, I don't know if it's Trainz Plus. It might be a Trainz Plus thing. If it is, it's worth it. It is a really nice way to be able to appreciate this route. So we'll set ourselves to the regulatory 12 miles per hour. So because the tram ran right along the roads, there were a number of rules in place to try to keep people and animals safe. Part of the whole reason that the J70s existed with their boxy appearance was to protect animals. So you have the boiler inside. You could kind of, if we go inside the cab, which we will shortly, you'll see the boiler inside. The cow catchers and side plates to protect people and animals. And the top speed was 12 miles per hour. If we go inside the tram, you can see the boiler here. So this is the smoke box right here with the chimney, funnel, whatever your preferred parlance. And then back here, we've got our fireman. His name is Steve. And there's our firebox. Okay, the first industry, or, first industry we encounter, or place that we can interchange cars with, is this brewery. This brewery, which I need to check the name on, Existed by the tram until 1911 when it was burned down in a fire. And then it was just redeveloped into line-side cottages, I believe. But this is a nice little compact industry that you could very easily model. Doesn't fit a whole lot, but as we've talked on the show before, it's not always about how much stuff you fit in, it's about what you do with the space you have. Okay, we are coming up to another crossing. This one's actually protected by a gate. If you look ahead, you'll see that that gate has just closed. And we have a horse and cart waiting for us. We're going to stop. And ring our bell. And now we will proceed. That gate attendant got a little bit too happy. He thought we were stopped for real, but no. He realized his mistake. And let me know, as I'm showing you this, if you want to see more wide angle, if I stayed too close to the tram, let me know. I'm going to try to vary the camera angles without making you guys too dizzy in the process. RWS Baden, does the brake van in Trainz actually work? He helps stop the train. Sadly not. That would be really awesome. Unfortunately, would it be possible to make it work in such a way? Yes, but as it's currently configured, no. I will also say, though, that on a route like this, where it's very level and very flat, one would not need to use the brake van a tremendous amount. So here's before we proceed to Elmbridge, which is our next major area of focus, this kind of gives you a nice overview of what we just traversed. A lot of road running, fields, with the canal nice and neatly tucked by. Uncle Sean, how much traffic did this line have on it? Actually, quite a bit. Usually, so initially when the tram service was started, only one tram was allowed on the line at a time. But later that was expanded to 2. And the schedule, especially in the teens and 20s, you'd have 7 or 8 scheduled round trips. So it was fairly busy. We are coming up to Elmbridge. Sodor Train, you did a fantastic job making this route. I would love to use it, however, I don't have trades. Well, keep your eyes peeled for when Trainz Z goes on sale. There's a lot of great routes available for this simulator. So it's... And the Surveyor, as you've seen through the various train layouts that we've built, is really easy to use. So I highly recommend it. So Elmbridge, our first... station. There are other passenger stops, so actually when we turned at that crossing, I want to say that's the Duke of Commonwealth Inn is a scheduled stop. Oh, let me bring up the timetable. So yes. Yep. So we're coming up to Elm Depot. We don't need to stop because we are a freight train. Nah, Duke of Commonwealth wasn't a scheduled stop. This, too, is a scene that lends itself to modeling because if we look at it from the top, you can see how severe that curve is. And because we're using short wheelbase wagons and locomotives, that is not an issue. And the sidings don't need to be long to offer a wide opportunity for switching. Not Umbridge, Elmbridge. Not the Harry Potter professor. Now we're coming up to one of my favorite parts of the entire tramway. Probably my single favorite part. And that is, we are going to be paralleling this lovely estate over here, at which point the tram goes along this road through these parallel trees. And if you search Wisbech Upwell on Google, you'll see there's an image taken from about this angle where the tram is headed northbound with a couple of... I should switch. The tram's headed northbound with coaches. And it was honestly that photo that made me really consider modeling it. And when I started building this in the simulator, this is the scene I started with, and then I worked my way north. Then I was finished on the north end, then I worked my way south. And this is just a great transition scene to be able to go from one scene to another, because if you're looking at it from the outside, you're surrounded by these trees. But then to look at it from the outside and watch as the tram just chugs along, like, that is a classic Wisbech and Upwell scene right there. Now to refer to my book. And if you're wondering, why is he referring to his book so much if he just did an episode on this and and built this whole line? It's because a lot of the work on this route was done well over a year ago. And so my encyclopedic knowledge of the names has kind of slipped since then. Inglethorpe Hall. That's what I was looking for. That we just passed Inglethorpe Hall and that lovely row of trees. And we are coming up to Collett's Bridge, which was a sort of flag stop for the passenger services. But we are doing a freight service so that you get to we get to cover as much of the territory as quickly as possible. Nika says, something I always liked about the trams that I thought was weird was how they were 060s. I don't know why, but seeing the space between both ends and the wheels was so satisfying. Seeing them as 040s always looked weird to me. So there were two types of trams that worked on the tramway. And this I didn't know before I started researching. So the first class of trams were known as Y6s. That's the LNER designation. The GER designation for them was C15, I want to say. And they were 040s. They were built in 1873, and they were the main power on the line for both freight and passenger until the J70s came along. And when the J70s came along, such as this one, as 060s, more powerful. Mainly did freight, could pinch hit for passenger, and then passenger traffic went away, and the J70s were it. Collett's Bridge, now we have this really nice canal side running. People saying the issues with the stream freezing. Let me see if I can do something about that. Apologies if my internet is being unreliable, which is entirely possible. So I am going to check and see if that is a internet thing or what we have going on there. Okay, so we're sending out. I might turn down the visual, the export settings a bit if I can. Let me try that. We're going to try that. Okay, so hopefully it performs better. If it's not looking good, please do let me know. Sorry for that. G15 for the Y6GR designation. Thank you for the correction, Dusty Spartan. Hopefully that fixes the freezing issues. I really do not like my internet provider, but I am stuck with them, so thanks for bearing with me on that. Oh, Millennial Modeler saying he changed to 720 and that helped a lot. Good to know. It seems like this are why I built the tramway for Trainz, because this is it's a really relaxing thing to just sit back, relax, and enjoy watching the tram go by at a very slow rate. And this is what I want to try to encapsulate with the layout that we're going to build tonight in a much smaller space. Seeing folks saying that helps so much. Glad to hear that. And again, if you're I strongly recommend playing some of the music that I've linked to in the description in the background while watching this. I think it goes along really nicely. Four Seasons by Vivaldi. It may be cliched classical music, but I can't lie, I love it so much. That's why I used a little bit of it in the At the Rail Yard episode. I wish there were more photos of the in-between sections. In terms of the books, there's a lot of photos at places like Upwell and Wisbech East, but you're hard-pressed to find a lot of photos of sections like this, and I hope that I captured this area well. It's so difficult without those photos. The maps help tremendously. My main goal is to hope that I got the vibe of it correct. Joey the Cat, where did I get the J70? When you download the route, link in the description, or if you download it from the download station, if you're watching this on repeat, in the description of the route, and if you are downloading it from the download station, it's going to be under, just search Wisbech Upwell, and you'll find it, along with the base sessions. But the description has the link for where you can find the trams. They're from a person named Cameron Scott. Cam Scott is his username handle. I see some people are still having issues with the dropping out. I'm not seeing any complete dropouts on my end. Hopefully it's going better. Is there a mainline connector, Soder Train? Yes, back at Wisbech East. That is the connection to the Great Eastern Railway. There's just a couple of miles of the Great Eastern Brambling line on both sides because the focus of this is a tramway, but enough to get the sense of it. Boyce's Bridge. This is the halfway point of the tramway. And actually, we're going to be meeting somebody here, it looks like. Looks like we've got a passenger train that's going to be headed north. So again, this is Boyce's Bridge. Pretty small depot in its own right, but another place where wagons would be dropped off for farmers to load their produce to be shipped. Now we can see some of those lovely two-axle tramway coaches, aka Henrietta, if you are a Thomas fan. And that little brick building there, that's the station. very, very small, compact little station. Again, lends itself really well to modeling. There's so many scenes on this railway that you could just take that little chunk and turn into a 4x1 micro layout, and you would have enough to keep you entertained, let alone if you're doing something larger. Hint, we're going to be doing something a little bit larger than just a single station. Oh, and there it departs north. And again, we have lots of farms, fields, some orchards. Very tranquil landscape. Yes, more trams, boy. That is correct, Nika. Is the stream behaving better for you guys? Please do let me know if you're having more issues or not, because, I mean, there's only so much I could do about that, but I'm hoping that it's behaving better for everybody, so please do let me know. It's weird that it's acting up today. It's been fine for nearly the year that we've been doing this. Go figure. So now we are heading towards Upwell Basin, which was the original terminus of the tramway in 1873. And yes, it's Dusty Spartan notes that the top speed for the trams was 12 miles per hour. They had a governor device on them to prevent them from going faster. That could be shut off if they were used elsewhere on the network. And I'm led to believe from some of the stories in this book that occasionally it was shut off by crews on this tramway and that they were pushed to speeds that they weren't supposed to be. So I am told. That book actually, the Wisbech Upwell Tramway by Peter Pay, has some lovely stories. There's a lot of the sort of not in my backyard stories, accident reports, some photos of some vehicles getting to accidents on the tramway itself. It's very well written. There's a lot of photos, a lot of drawings, maps. I can't recommend it highly enough. I could not have made this route at with half the confidence as far as its accuracy without that book. Ron Paladin, what modeling tool are you using to create 3D objects? Well, most of the 3D objects in this route are not created by me and Ron. They are created by 3D modelers that are way more talented than I am. But that said, the water tower in Wisbech that I did model, I made in Blender. Monty asks, which tram do I think Trovy is? Well, canonically, he's a J70, although for the Reverend Audrey's model, he made a Y6. Because he was able to get an 040 power motor assembly. So here we are at Upwell Basin. Oh, I'm realizing, silly me, I forgot to turn on. So this route, I will take a pause. This isn't about model railroading, although it ties in maybe a little bit. This route is fully seasonal. So we have the ability to turn on and off different seasons. So I actually have crops in the field that previously was running this route in winter. When we get to the end, I'll show you the season changing aspect. It's pretty cool. But yes, now we actually have some cabbages being grown in the field here. Which, I like that a lot. And here we are in Upwell Basin. So the original terminus of the tramway in 1873 before it expanded further south. Again, not much to be spoke of it here. This wagon. It's supposed to be a coach, but I couldn't find any coach models, so I used a freight wagon. But this was their passenger shelter. It was this very rundown 1850s coach. I'll show you a picture of the actual one. Mostly, I don't wish to show photos, but this is one of those things where we can't find anything else. This was the actual coach used in Upwell Village. So I don't have a model of this to use, so I used the freight wagon. Not sure if this still exists. It says in the book that the body was rescued for preservation in 1988, but it doesn't say by who. Now we get to another interesting part of the tramway, and this is where the tram does not follow the road, and it has its own designated right-of-way. Still doing good on the stream health, guys? I trust you'll let me know if for some reason we are not. And just to give an overview of the kind of a bird's eye view of what we've been looking at here. Not much to this track configuration wise. As you can see, we're just kind of riding our way through the fenlands, plenty of fields. There are actually a couple of windmills. We'll see. If you can see, might be able to... Oh, my cursor is not active. Let us change that. That is going to come in handy for later. So, now you can see my cursor. And over here is a windmill, and we'll see some a bit closer a bit later. Now we rejoin the road, we rejoin the canal. Watermill Films. Oh, if you're watching from the UK, well then, thumbs up to you for staying up this late for joining us. Difficult to find a time that works for everybody. But I appreciate that you could tune in tonight. Oh, and it's late for you too, Dusty Spartan. Well, kudos to everybody in the UK. Shout out to UK folks who are tuning in super late. Appreciate you joining us. Hi, Virtual Railroader Academy. Thank you for joining us tonight, Casey. I should also note you'll see both horses and cars along the line. I've activated them, but in the layers of the surveyor, you have the ability to toggle them on and off. So if you want to do earlier pre-automobile running, or if you want to do post-horse Mavis era diesel running, you have the ability to change between the different eras. I would say that I've modeled this for the 19 teens, thereabouts. So definitely GER, passenger era, prime. But I think that it's not too much of a stretch. The main difference would be the roads. You had more paved roads, especially the diesel era. But to do the diesel era justice would take a lot of rework. If somebody else wants to do that, more power to you. Yeah, the puff, puff, puff is it's a very calming sound. I enjoy it myself. Okay, now we are entering Upwell Village. And Upwell Village, or no, not Upwell, Outwell Village. This is Outwell Village. These are where the coal wagons, coal merchant, I think a coal merchant owned this siding, but this is frequently where coal was delivered. And then This is a switchman's dream. If you love your switching puzzles, then have I got a switching puzzle for you. This section of Upwell Village unquestionably lends itself to model railroading. And so this track in the foreground here would be for coal unloading onto the canal barges, the canal boats. And now we are entering the village here. And we're going to need to stop to make sure that we give adequate warning to our coming along. Sodor train, have I modeled Yarmouth Harbor? No, but the last layout that we covered on Great Train Layouts Live was the Lolita and Mad River, which had a very strong harbor theme. And even though it's US based, I think it would not be too much of a stretch to run a J70 tram on that layout. Good evening, Michael Galino. Thank you for joining us. Good to see you. So we are nearing our destination of Upwell at 5 miles and 72 chains from Wisbech East. Hey, Alex Beck. It has been a hot minute. I'm glad that you could join us tonight. And it is really good to have all of you tuning in and be able to enjoy streaming with you guys and sharing this. This route has, as I said, been a 3-year process of creation. Tonight we're celebrating its release. Link in the description for downloading this. And if you don't see a link in the description because you're watching this on repeat, that's because it is available on the download station. You just search Wisbech Upwell. And as you can see here, it's just more paralleling the canal. It's a very meditative route because you can't go fast. It was daunting to build for that reason. Part of the reason it took so long to build is because the ability to analyze every single inch of this thing meant that I knew I didn't want to take shortcuts with the scenery. So, and there's plenty of... I redid the entire canal probably 2 or 3 times. So I do it one style and go, nah, I don't want to do it that way, and redo it to a different style. So, a lot of trial and error. Michael Galene, I'll see how it is in 22 for you. Yes, please do. This route has gone through beta testing, so hopefully there aren't missing QIDs or issues. If there are, do let me know. But hopefully not. Everything should be relatively easy to find. And no faulty assets. But you know how Trainz development can be. Now we are once again going on a dedicated right-of-way for the last stretch of our journey. And now you can see one of those windmills nearby. I definitely want to put a windmill on the... we've got to put a windmill on the train layout that we build tonight. Nice cinematic shot here. Ooh, that's a good screenshot, too. Screenshot moment. Watermill Films, I've actually reached out to Peter Pay. I do want to have him on the podcast. The challenge is that he's in the UK, so I have to see if he can do an internet interview. Because that's the only way, because international calls are tricky without the internet. So, but I do want to I would love to cover the podcast. Love to cover the podcast on the tramway. Love to cover the tramway on the podcast. Our last crossing before we enter the yards at Upwell. What's on the docket for building today? We are going to build a 00 scale version of this tramway. So now that you've had the chance to ride along the tramway and get a sense of what the character and feel of it is, now we're going to try to take it and squish it into a train layout. That's what we're going to be doing tonight. Because here we are at our end destination of Upwell. So this was the final terminus for the route. It was a 8-track yard, and later had 2 more sidings built onto it over in this area over here, but I've modeled it pre-expansion. And as you can see, it was a place of a lot of action. Cars coming in and out. Our passenger stations over here, cattle pens, coal bins, lot of switching. A lot of switching opportunities. So we have made it to Upwell. So now we are we'll do a quick flyover the route to just kind of review where we've been as we go north. Then we're going to take a look at how to make this as a train layout. So if we do a quick flyover going north, here we have so this is where a lot of the farm traffic would originate. So the farmers would come and drop off their fruit to be loaded into vans to be taken north. This device over here would check to make sure that all the cars, all the wagons were within the proper loading gauge for going on to the larger railway system. As we fly along, we enter the village of Outwell. And then continuing to fly north, we have a bit of dedicated tramway right-of-way before entering Outwell Basin, the original terminus of the tram. Continuing to fly north, we have Boyce's Bridge. Boyce? Why am I spicing on this thing? Boyce's, yeah. Boyce's Bridge. Collett's Bridge over here. That was a flag stop for the passenger trams. Inglethorpe Hall. And this really nifty tree tunnel. Elm Bridge over here. This brewery. New Common Bridge, which was also a flag stop in the passenger era. Then we rejoin the Great Eastern Railway main line, the Bramley line over here. Wisbech East, the end of the tramway and where passengers would change trains. And then the last part of the story, which a lot of people don't know about, and it's not part of the tramway itself, but it is Wisbech North, which is where freight trains would originate. So, with that said, we are going to take a look first at how a little bit behind the scenes to show how I made this route, and then we're going to look at it in terms of making it in 00 gauge. Before we do that, though, I want to give a shout out to today's sponsor, and that is Rapido Trains UK. So, Rapido Trains, long known for some really great North American rolling stock, and they have now expanded to the UK within recent years. A few years ago, they produced an absolutely exquisite J70 tram engine, which you can buy from Model Rail in 00 gauge. But now they are producing tram packs. So this is going to be the J70 in 2 different liveries. So in this photo here, you see it in the crimson livery with the gray cowcatcher side plates. So you get the tram and you get the two coaches, numbers 7 and 8. One of these coaches, number 8, was used in the Titfield Thunderbolt movie. And I mean, look at that. The detail of these is exquisite. The reason I felt comfortable about having Rapido as a sponsor for today is because I own one of the J70 tram engines. It is an absolutely beautiful model. It's so beautiful, I actually had it running on a circle of track at my wedding. So that is not something I could say about every model railroad piece of equipment that I own. So, they are accepting pre-orders, but you have to get your pre-order in quick because the pre-order window closes in February 6th of 2023, and you definitely don't want to miss these models. And we're going to be, just in a few minutes, we're going to be looking at how you could make a train layout perfect for this equipment. So thank you to Rapido Trains UK for the sponsorship for tonight. Now, we are going to look at a behind-the-scenes glimpse of what it was like to... this is a version of the route that's sort of mid-build. So there's a lot of things that change between this and the final version. But the reason I want to show you this to you is because I want to show you the process of how I got this to work. So first I imported the terrain. And for the terrain... it doesn't show the maps in clear detail here for some reason. Interesting. But I imported the terrain. So even though it's flat, it's not 100% flat. There are slight inclines. And that is replicated in the terrain data that I've imported. Then I laid the track. And for the track, I used the books, such as this one, to get accurate information on the grades to make sure that it wasn't just boring and perfectly flat, that there was a little bit of character to the track work. So the track work is accurate. Then it was a matter, now for some reason in this in-between version, you can't quite see it, and I think that's because we're not in Tain. But you can kind of see how there's these map outlines. In Trainz A New Era, the map outlines were much clearer. Yes, that's why, because we'd have to load it up in Trainz. But the map outlines were so clear that you could see property lines. So every time there was a property line, I knew to draw a field. Sometimes buildings were even illustrated, so it made it a lot easier to sort of connect the dots. That, combined with referencing photos in the books, just a lot of going back. So this was an early draft of how I made the canal, and as you can see, I changed that. But this gives you a little bit of a glimpse into what it took to make the tramway. So simply to say that you too can learn Train Simulator route building. I would have never thought when I embarked on route building for Trainz, or when I embarked on at the rail yard and I was reviewing all of these real life routes, that I would ever make a real life route of my own. But I decided in 2019 I was going to take on the Wisbech Upwell, and I'm so glad that I did. Now, for tonight's second feature, double feature, if you will, we've now explored the tramway, and here we are in a completely new route, and we are going to make the tramway for a 6 by 10 foot room using this track plan. So this track plan is something that I created before the stream. Designed to fit a 6 by 10 foot room. The minimum radius on the curves is 15 inches, with the aim that basically anything could fit around that. You could probably make it even tighter, but I don't know what the minimum radius is going to be on those tram coaches. So the idea is that this is going to be something that you could run even the bogie tram coaches on. Joey the Cat, is there a Tain version of the Wisbech Upwell? Yes, that will be up on the download station within the next few days. So yes, there is a version for Tain. So what am I envisioning doing tonight? How are we going to make the tramway into a train layout in a 6 by 10 foot space? That is a good question. At first, we should probably mark out what that 6 by 10 foot space looks like. So we're going to build our rulers, or the sim's going to freeze on me and I'm going to need to reload it. One of those two things is going to happen. I think one of those two things already has happened. Sorry about that. Uh, we will be we will be right back once we've reloaded the simulator. Stay tuned here on. But while the sim has crashed, you could kind of just to give a little bit of a brief overview of what we've got. We've got a staging yard over here that's going to represent Wisbech and Upwell, both ends of the route, one staging yard. We are going to model where the tramway breaks away from the main line over in this section here. Some parallel running to the canal along here. Elm Bridge over here. And then right out of frame is going to be Outwell Basin. So we will be right back once I can reboot this sim. All right. Well, while I am continuing to wait for the simulator to reboot, because for some reason I am having particular difficulty, I've seen requests in the chat for trivia, and I like that idea. So I'm going to throw out some trivia questions for you guys. So the first question is, what year did the Wisbech and Upwell Railway, or the tramway, it wasn't a separate railway, what year did the tramway become fully dieselized? Go. And we're back here on Great Train Layouts Live. And the answer to the trivia question, the closest was Thamesburg Steamer with 1952. The actual answer is March of 1953, which makes it one of the first, if not the first, of British Railways lines to be completely dieselized by the Class 04 diesels, which I will pull up one of those to show you what that looks like, because we got to appreciate the J70 in all its glory. But this may look familiar to some as Mavis, also complete with cowcatcher and side plates, just like Toby. So here is our track plan that we are working with. This is designed for a 6 foot by 10 foot space. The rationale behind this is that I was going to make it a 4 by 8, but I couldn't make a 4 by 8 to my liking. So instead, we're making a layout that's small enough that you could fit it as a shelf layout into just about any room that you'd want, to try to get 3, maybe 4 distinct scenes out of it. So this is what we are going to be working on today. So our first scene, we're going to work from north to south. This is going to be staging over here. We're going to treat that as just plain unmodeled spare room, closet kind of space. The reason that I chose not to model Wisbech or Upwell is because, as you can see with Wisbech, the station area is exciting, but there's not a lot going on as far as freight traffic is concerned or switching. So it's pretty, but it would take up a lot of space and not add a ton operationally. The thing with Upwell is that Upwell is basically just a staging yard in and of itself with some runarounds. So that's why we are doing a staging yard that's not modeled for these. So as we have it, we're going to be essentially modeling the tram. We're going to be modeling the tramway entering on and off the main line. But that's one of the compromises you have to decide that you're going to make when it comes to model railroading. But scenically, it will look like that scene where the tram curves off of the main line. Yes, it's Dusty Spartan is correct. One tram was kept on the tramway until one of the steam trams was kept until 1953. So let us begin with this. So we're going to first place a nice signal box here. And if you are missing the music, I highly encourage you to check out the playlist in the description for some nice classical music. Now, there's a cottage in the actual scene. There's a full cottage here. Maybe we could try to squeeze that. If we're saying that this yellow line is going to be our wall, which we are, it could work that way. But the key is if we could fit a cottage small enough into that footprint. I think it's going to make it too crowded. So rather than putting the cottage here, we're going to put the signal box in the center of the scene here. And then our road, I'm going to mark it with a spline road, and then we'll refine it later. But right now, I just kind of want to outline where it's going to go. So the dirt road crosses here, and then it crosses the tram this way, and it parallels on this side of the tram. Now, my thinking is that this is going to be New Common Bridge over here. That this is because it would be nice to have a bridge scene as far as on the tramway as opposed to the mainline bridge. So I feel like I want to outline the borders. The trick with having made my own plan is that I can cheat things, but I do not want to cheat them. So I'm going to add a fascia layer here. I'm going to mark that just so that I can kind of envision what my borders are going to be. This way. And we'll use... that was a bit tall. Let me see if I can find one of the shorter ones. Yes, that should work fine. And it is backwards. So we'll float it around here, roughly cutting it to about here, and then we want this to be about a foot deep, maybe less. This seems about right. This looks like a comfortable depth. And that way we can put some cottages along the road here. So this part of the tramway is going to be where the tram is embedded in the road, right up through New Common Bridge over here. Let's do some terrain forming as well. Having this, I'm going to need to move this ruler too. It's a bit distracting to have it on the wrong side of the line. So if we put it over here and we put it over here, then I can properly see what my outline is going to be. So this is going to place the canal as our backdrop over here. And we'll set a depth of -4 meters, I think. We'll try that first for size and see if that's deep enough. Yeah, that looks probably a bit too deep, but also we'll put the water up to a higher level, so it's not going to matter too much. And we could just have, I think we'll probably just have the canal be cut in half. Scenically. We'll figure that out when we get to that stage. And then let us set the track height so that that doesn't totally go crazy once we put that into play here. And I'm also going to set the track height for these because we're going to have to prepare for the bridge being put over here. And then in this version, we're going to have the canal just disappear into the foreground about here. And that way we've got this nice bridge scene looking square on. Because we haven't replicated how much the curve into the bridge turns based on what we saw in the tramway. But that said, it should be, it gives us a side view of it. And that's really the best way to appreciate that particular scene. So we're going to model the canal to about down to here. That looks and feels right. And then let us get some cottages along the way. So I might change which ones I use, but just going to put some placeholders in here for now. These CL cottages are particularly nice and quaint. I like the feeling of them. And of course, depending on, this is a great opportunity to be able to do some really small details as far as you could have people attending to their gardens or kids playing outside in the yard. And it gives you some foreground interest so that when you're looking at the tram, it's not always going to be perfectly visible. It's going behind something. Oh, thank you for the super chat, Jack Boy. Hey, Nick, just sub to the Patreon. Oh, thank you for that as well. Appreciate your content and what you do for the community. Well, that's very kind of you. Thank you. And thank you for supporting me on Patreon. If you want to join Jack and join the crew, what we call the Roundhouse crew, you go to patreon.com/theroundhouse. There's a link in the description for that. For as little as $1 a month, you're getting early access to the Trainz layout builds that we do. Such as this one. There's actually a British one that I just posted a few days ago called Copper Wort. It's about switching in a beer brewery back at the turn of the last century. Also British, also very quaint. J70 wouldn't look out of place on that. So you get early access to that, and early access for $5 a month. You get early access to the Roundhouse podcast episodes, so you can check that out. So yes, as I was saying, this is a great way of being able to have some nice people, human interest scenes in the foreground, and to kind of break up the monotony of just having a perfect view of the tram and the tramway. Let us see about doing a little bit of landscaping before we build the bridge. I have to confess, I'm so used to working with other people's track plans that have all the details in place. It's a little unnerving to be like, wait, my template is completely blank. What the heck am I doing here? I think I'm nervous too because I'm live streaming something that I actually designed as opposed to these other designs where it's like, oh, somebody made this. I'm sure this will work out. It's like, oh, yeah, I designed this one. Um, let's build the bridge, shall we? So this one, there's a few. So I think I'm gonna kind of get the large pieces into play, and then we'll do some super detailing. And we're basically gonna see what we can get accomplished in 2 hours. But I feel like I want to get this scene done for y'all in that space of time. So let's see what we can do about that. Okay, so the bridge. The bridge, man, did I make it in a complicated manner? Because there's not a single asset that makes it up. It's actually kind of a bunch of different ones, which was fun to make as sort of a kit bash. So with Trainz with a Z, I love kit bashing, just like you would with model railroading. So you can take these different parts that otherwise don't really belong together, and you can fit them together and make them look like they fit. And we have brick fence. That's going to be the edges. And then the ballast line is going to be the ends. The girder. So we're going to put these girders down for our, just to have some ends, which we'll put facing about like so. I think that should work thereabouts. Maybe a little bit more forward. Something like that. Just so we have some bridge abutments, just so that it looks pretty. Actually, that might be the way to go about it, is like that. Yes, that makes more sense. And then moving it this way, just so that there's room for the road. Because New Common Bridge was essentially 2 lanes, so you had the railroad, and then you had the vehicle traffic, horse traffic, etc. This is going to be the base for our bridge here, and we'll set that at a height of 0. And we'll need to raise it up. There we go. So we'll put that here and raise it to about there, and then same for that side. So this is the base for our bridge, so that there's something underneath that track. I think that'll probably be wide enough. At least for the sake of modeling, it'll be wide enough. Then we can move these middle sections of the bridge into place. And we'll need to move that bridge abutment a bit further back, won't we? Just so that it doesn't sticking out too far. Yep, like so. And then we'll need another one on the other side. Like this. Move it into place. Raise it up. So, Wisbech and Upwell. So, I'm tempted to ask how you guys found out about the Wisbech and Upwell, but chances are we all found out about it because of Toby the Tram Engine. I think that is a very safe bet. So, I hope that more people, as time goes on, discover about what the real Wisbech and Upwell was like, because it's such an obscure little piece of railroad history, and I think that it deserves its own recognition even outside of Thomas. And if you have any questions, comments, suggestions as we're streaming this, as you're watching me go along, feel free to put them in. Joey the Cat, what do I search in the download station? The routes are not available in the download station yet, and not the Tane version. The 19 version is available in the description, but they are not yet on the download station. So if you're looking there and you're not finding it, that is why. They will be in a couple days, I would say, once they get approved for upload by N3V, I guess it is. Okay. So this is our bridge, our New Common Bridge. Alex Beck, Dusty Spartan is an Eastern Mainline through and through, not what she doesn't know. Oh, yes. Kudos to Dusty Spartan. Clearly, you, sir, are very up to date on your Wisbech and Upwell knowledge. Here's a question I'll pose to you. So, what is an obscure British branch line that you have a fascination or enjoyment over. So for me, obviously, this one stands out. But what's a British branch line that you've come to appreciate? Maybe because it was preserved as a heritage railway, or there's just something interesting about the equipment or how it ran. I'm continually discovering very interesting British British tramways and the like. The most recently, the one that and actually this one I'm considering doing both as a train layout build and maybe even as the next real full scale Trainz route build, is the Lyme Regis branch of the Southern Railway. Um, that is one with the Adams radial tank that has really come to fascinate me. So I've already bought the Peter Pave book of that and a couple of other books. So I'm going down that rabbit hole as we speak. So don't be surprised if a couple years from now I end up producing that branch line. The Sprat and Wrinkle line. Not familiar with that. Rheanator? The Adams radials and their little branch. Yes, Lyme Regis. We were thinking along the same lines, Alex Beck. Okay, there's our new common bridge. Now, for this, for tonight, we're just going to do this as a spline. Later on, I think I'll refine this as an actual water texture. But I want to get something in place for the canal. So we're going to place that here. And we're going to raise it to about yay high, I think. Thereabouts. We're going to make that piece straight so it doesn't look weird coming out of the fascia. And then we're going to curve around here and make it go straight through here. And then make sure that goes straight. Make sure it's at the correct height. And there we have it. So that is just, that's a nice, actually that's not half bad as far as being able to fit it into the allotted space. I'll have to see. I mean, part of the trick with working Trainz is always the rigid grid system. Because I'd like to lower these, but then you could kind of see under the, I'll have to put embankments there to refine that edge a little bit more. We might fudge it a little bit just to say, okay, so you've got a really narrow canal. Because if we put the backdrop in place, forest. So if we just put a backdrop in place, and I want to use, let's say, I mean, a forest backdrop isn't, oh, I know what backdrop I want to use. This. So if we put a backdrop in place right next to the tram, we lower that down so the grass isn't quite so distracting. It looks weird if it's cut in the middle of the canal. We'll have to show the other side of the canal. So we're extending our room a little bit, but how you make the backdrop could vary. So I don't consider it the worst form of cheating. Yeah. But this will give us a sense of what we are going for as far as the canal is concerned. And then I think I have a nicer dirt road than that because I could make it just out of a spline, but I'm inclined to make it out of actual dirt so it matches with the, yeah, that's what I'm going to do. So we've got the signal box, we've got the, we need to build this bridge. Ugh, now I have to remember which assets I used for that bridge. We're going to switch back to the real route so that I can grab the assets and use the actual bridge. I grabbed most of what I need, but I did forget a couple. But we'll switch back to the, while appreciating the fine work of Rapido Trainz UK, the sponsor for this episode, we will, we'll switch back to the tramway and I'll show you the seasonal, how the route works on a seasonal basis. Okay, here we are back in the full-sized the full-scale Wisbech Upwell Tramway. And so this is, for reference, this is the scene that we're creating here. So we've got this cottage and this crossing, then this signal box. So I'm going to add these to my pick list. So we're going to change the pick list to Wisbech Upwell. So I'm going to add these just so that I can know that I'm using the right assets. I think the trick is that we might not have enough room for that cottage, but we'll at least try for it. And then the assets I need to use are these berms, I think, or is that a brick? Oh, that's a brick wall. Ah, that's what I was doing. Okay, stone wall. Sometimes it's funny when you work. Have you ever had that where you work on a project and then you go back to it and you think to yourself, wait, how did I do that thing again? And then you're like, oh yeah, that was pretty clever thing for me to do. Oh, Bluebell Railway, great choice for a favorite branch line. Choo Choo Charles, no, not my speed of video game. But West Somerset Railway, yes, great model railway. So one of the features that I want to showcase for the full version of the route is that it is a fully seasonal route. So right now it is set in February, and you'll notice that most of the trees are missing leaves. Actually, we need to switch it because it's kind of broken. So let's start with July. So if we switch the season to July, then you will see that there's trees on the leaves. It takes a little while to populate. Trees on the leaves, we've got crops in the field. Everything is very green. Now if we switch it to October, now we start to get those fall colors into play. And then if we switch it to January, now we lose leaves on the trees. Things look a lot sparse, a lot more cold. And then if we turn on the snow, we change the snow altitude, then we get to appreciate the tramway in wintertime as it slowly loads all the textures. So the model railroad utility of this is simply to say that, hey, maybe you want to consider other seasons besides summer. I think a lot of us gravitates towards just doing a summer route, but the reality is that there could be merits to other seasons. The only trick with the Wisbech and Upwell is that obviously a lot of its traffic was based around produce, which would base it around the summer. Hence, if you were modeling winter, you'd mainly be running passenger services. But food for thought. Do I need to grab any other assets before I switch back over? I don't think so. So now we're going to switch back over to the layout now that I've grabbed what I need to do the deed. And here we are back in the layout version of this. So we're going to build that custom bridge over the canal here, like so. And then we'll grab the road asset, which means I probably am going to need to make this a little wider, and that's okay. I will do that. Now, do we want the bridge to go all the way up to the staging? Probably, yeah, just to be safe. Set the height at 0 so that it's at the correct height, as well as those, so that when we lower the ground, it doesn't do funky things on us. We will now proceed to lower the ground. Like, nope, not like that. That is raising the ground. We will now lower the ground so we have our bridge in place, and there is the canal going like so. So as you can see, we've reduced the radius of the curve, even as tight as it was before. So if we try to fit in that building that we used previously, and I believe this is just some kind of cottage. None of the books are really specific about the nature of what the building is. Can we squeeze in there? Kinda. It's a pretty doggone tight fit. But, well, but the problem is if we squeeze this building in here, A, it looks kind of really big for this scene, and we don't have room for the signal box. So we're going to adapt this a bit. Now, granted, I've made this a very small layout. This is 6 by 10, namely because I didn't want this build to take forever, and I want to try to do as much scenery as I can with you guys tonight. So it'd be easy to imagine expanding this to 8 by 12 or heck, a full basement if you really wanted to. But this is really just trying to distill down some core scenes and how we could compress it as best as possible. So that gives you a sense of what we are going for. So we've got this bridge in place. Now we'll use those stone walls to create the bridge abutments. And we'll put them about that height, get the height, use the height to put them underneath the bridge like so. That seems about accurate to me. So, and I'm just gonna, for the time being, just place them here. I will eventually place them all the way around, but I really want to cover as much of this layout as we can. But that at least gives you the impression of the route looking from this side, which is mostly how you would view it. Fine, I'll do that one there. And we'll just reduce that down in height, and we'll bring this side of it out to about here, and then this side comes out to here. And then right about there. And then we need to square this side up, and I'll go about there. Now, when we look at it, that looks right. But I actually, even though it's kind of a compromise in terms of what the scene looks like, having the signal box in this center, it still looks accurate. We'll use this one. I like this one more. So this still looks like the scene. Like if you didn't have the photo right next to it, you'd go, well, that still looks generally correct. Meanwhile, in the background here, we would just probably have one of these cottages. We'll put that one in place like so. And then this would just be fields. We'll take care. Do I want to start texturing now? I mean, we are pretty much done with the broad strokes of things. So yeah, let's get to texturing. Some of that good old PBR grass. Let's start with what color do I want to go with? Kind of an interesting texture, but not quite what I'm going for. I want it to be more just straight green. Yeah, that seems about right. So we'll reduce the scale. Obviously, we'll make this a little bit more visually interesting, but this is just going to be our base. I think over here, I want to do the swamp. So the swamp was a little bit farther back along here. I also want to put a door somewhere because there's no way that the door is going to go anywhere over here. So I want to be somewhat realistic by saying, okay, and you could go, well, Nick, why, if there's a door here, then why is there why is your spur off to the staging yard there? That's a good question. I don't have a good answer for you on that. We're just going to pretend that that's a closet or a room that you access by a completely different way. I mean, you could put a door here somewhere. Like you could make this a lift-out section. So, yeah, we'll say this is a lift-out section. That seems completely plausible. Or a duck under, something along those lines. Again, this is such a small space. The point of building this isn't to say that I imagine anybody's actually going to make this specific layout. The point is to just see what we could do to capture the spirit so that if you get one of those Rapido J70s, you have some ideas for what you can do with it modeling-wise. So, with that said, yeah, we'll just use this as pretty much the basis for this whole area here. And then we're going to use some of those dirt textures for actually doing roads. But I'm tempted to make this the swamp, because that swamp just has a nice look to it. It's something different from just having grass and fields, because I think we'll have plenty of room for that. But I'm going to come back to that later, because it kind of depends on what we do elsewhere. So we're going to go to We're going to go to this one, and we're going to grab our dirt texture from that. And we're going to use that dirt texture here, like so, to create our roadway. And we're going to also probably replace the track in this section here to give it more of an embedded look. Because I can raise this up and make it so that we're hiding the perfectly manicured roadbed. I will do that, but I'm also mindful that even when we do that, the track doesn't look quite right, and you'll see what I mean in just a moment. So we're going to raise it to about, let's see, no, that was about the right height. And that, just about the right height, was 0.34. And so we're going to use that for embedding the rest of the track. So now we're getting that nice tramways look about it. And so we won't need to actually have the road because we'll put a sidewalk in there and we'll remove that texture. And this is where the crossing happens. So this is where it really starts to become embedded, as it were. Okay, with that said, and we'll just keep that at the same height so that way we can also use that as our cheat sheet for the crossing there. We'll probably use a separate crossing asset for that. In fact, actually, I know what crossing asset I want to use for that, but we'll come back to that in a moment. There we go. Already starting to take more of that tram look. But you can see, partially with the PBR, you get these weird effects where you're still seeing the rails show through. Sometimes it's buried, sometimes it isn't. So what we were going to do here is we're going to actually replace the track. So instead of using this perfectly manicured LRW track with the bullhead, now this is what it actually did look like underneath. And there's even some diagrams in some of the books showing what the track looked like underneath. But we are going to instead use, let us see, what, the bridge track. There's what I want to be using. So this track is just showing the top of the rails. So you can see if you look at it from the side, it kind of is floating in midair. But that's what's going to give us the nicest look for this. So we delete that section and we put that in. And see already, now it has that. Now it looks like it's actually breaking through the ground and you don't get those same weird effects with the ties showing and not showing and so forth. And we'll do the same for here, replacing this section. And this section, yeah, we'll replace here. Oh, except that it seems to have done weird things with the height. Oh, because it's the whole section, right. So we'll delete that and apply it to there and apply the height like so. There we are. Okay, now that is looking more and more like the tramway that I know and love. And now off to the side here, I feel like this would be a nice meadow. I really want to have just some wildflowers and that kind of thing off to here. Because we don't need to have buildings everywhere. And part of the trick is going to be to get the sense of expanse. I want that to be able to contain the scenes and have action, but I also want that feeling of space. Because as you saw during the first part of this show, when we were running along the tramway, there's so much of it that's just the in-between moments. And that's part of why I chose to do an around the room shelf design for this, is because, yes, if you're doing a micro layout, like a 4 foot by 1 foot layout, it does make sense to just take one of the towns and that would be your entire layout, like Elmbridge over here or Outwell Basin over here. But I wanted to get the sense of just being able to run. I want this to run in circles. And so having that sense of in-between is going to be important. So having buildings, but having breathing room at the same time. Let us smooth that a little bit more, and then we're going to put down some grass. And also probably some grass textures. And maybe some initial trees. A lot of things to put down. So these Ute assets are absolutely great. I mean, their cliffs are fantastic. We definitely don't need them for today, but boy, do I love those cliff assets. We had fun with them with the Lolita and Mad River. Which I guess is a good time to ask you guys what, since we're coming up on a year of Great Train Layouts Live, and I hope you've been enjoying it as much as I have, I want to ask you what has been your favorite layout build so far. Let's change the season because I have a feeling that we're in February or something like that. Yes, let's make it summer because that's really what we're building this route for. Ah, yeah, that looks much better. So what has been your favorite train layout build or episode that we've done? Because obviously I want to make content that you guys enjoy and what is most helpful to your modeling, your train simming. So if you could give me some feedback as far as what your favorite episode's been, just especially if you're live, but even after the fact, leave a comment. I really appreciate it. Okay, looking more and more like the tram that I know and love. Let's get a sidewalk in there. And I want a sidewalk because I want that sense of separation. Oh, I love that Cobble Street Road. Not appropriate for this layout. We used that in, again, Lolita and Mad River, but I love cobblestones. Let's see. This looks a little bit too modern. I'm looking for something that looks a little... I mean, that's kind of a neat design, but not right for what we're going for. Also not right for what we're going to. Although, actually, this is a sidewalk feels right. I'm going to go with it, even if it's not technically accurate. But it certainly looks more accurate than the concrete stuff. And we're just going to give that a height of 0. And we're going to apply that here and here. Let's add some... I want to put the houses or the cottages a little bit back so that we have an excuse to do a little bit of a front yard and so forth. So we'll just put them right against the back. Except for this one, because I don't have room there. We'll have to change which ones we use. But there are other versions of this, so yeah, we've got different door colors. Actually, I think what I want to do is model maybe a block of these. Because you saw on the full scale build where we kind of did a little bit of each. Well, I say it as if I was totally making it up. But you saw how there's some sections where there's individual cottages and others where there's more of they occur in rows. Something like that. Actually, do I want to take a shortcut and use the cottage? Well, those are too big, but that's like terrace. That's what I want. Not these ones. Those are too modern. Also too modern, but closer. Terrace wall yards. Victorian terrace. That's what I'm looking for. Will these even fit? Oh, they will. I might do a little bit of that just because. We'll save this cottage for another place. What I like about these terraced houses is they come complete with their front yards and everything already built. So we'll just place a few of them here. Oh, not quite the right size. Need to stretch it a little bit more to... There we are. So, and that's what it looks like from the back. I think I want to do a mixture. So if we do those as kind of the solid unit, and then we do these as the spaced out ones, that way you could kind of peek through and see the tram going along the tramway, but you can also look down it this way and have more of a... I don't know if I like those ones there, though. I mean, there were definitely terraced houses like this on the route. So yeah, I'm not sure. I think I'll set these to the side for the time being. I'm not sure that I like it enough to want to use it here. Anyway, answering your responses. Radioisotopic says, love the logging route. Good to know. The Sandy River logging company. John Overman, you like this, and you like the P&L secondary, and Kootenai like navigation. Also, faves of mine, I've got a route coming up that's very similar to P&L secondary. I'm looking forward to that build. Thank you for tuning in, Watermill Films. Have a good night. And Michael Galina, look at how far I've come without the rail yard videos. Well, that's very kind of you. I appreciate you saying that. Oh, I seem to have deleted the backdrop by accident. We'll put that back in. Just because it's kind of handy to have that to figure out how this all looks in context. Well, the final version will have a more refined version than this, but this gives us a little bit of something to work off of. And so we're moving the cottage back into scene here. Yeah, I think I want to make one double unit, so we'll make these a double unit. But then everything else will make single units. Now, I do want to get into super detailing these, but I think we've got the broad strokes covered as far as what this area is going to look like. And with only a little over an hour to go, I think I want to move forward. So if we have time to come back to this, we will. But at least this gives you a sense of the sort of new common bridge vibe that we're going for in this area. Next up, we've got Elm Depot. And for this, we're going to put our fascia on a separate layer. And we're going to put it about here. I tend to work in perfect squares because that's easier as far as how layout construction in this sim goes. Really, one could put this a bit closer, but we're just going to put some field adjacent to it. So the border of it facing in is kind of a flexible thing, essentially. So we'll say that it closes up here, and then this will come to meet it here. Now we'll switch back to the main root layer. Otherwise, I'm going to build everything on the fascia layer and annoy myself 30 minutes later when I realize what I've done. All of this is going to get embedded into the ground. So we're going to just do a bulk track replace on this. Doing this following tool. Oh, kitty cameo time. This is my cat, Luca. Say hi to Luca. He's been on my lap the entire time, but he is such the lap cat that frequently I don't even pay attention to the fact that he's on there. So I just realized, oh yeah, I have a cat on my lap. He can say hello to you guys. Okay, we are bulk replacing this track asset. Again, another benefit of modeling in Trainz or a simulator is the fact that you get to try different approaches to laying track and how you would ballast it and so forth, and then you can see what it looks like before you actually have to commit to it. So all of this we're going to replace with the street running track. This hasn't been working for me lately, and I have no clue why. Because I selected it. It says the layer is locked, but it shouldn't be. We'll unlock all the layers just so that it really has absolutely nothing to complain about. I'll even make the base maps visible just so it doesn't. Because I've been having that issue with some of the scenery replacement things. Okay, that worked. So now if we turn the base maps off and lock everything that isn't the track layer, there are some things that one has to kind of learn to work with in Trainz, and there's just no getting around that. But once you learn them, you know how to navigate them. We're setting all the spline heights at 0 because this train layout has no grades whatsoever. Doesn't really need it. All the grades on the actual thing were so subtle, except for going up to New Common Bridge. But, you could compensate for that, but I just don't think there aren't grades that were real operational challenges on the Wisbech Upwell Tramway. So there's not really a need to do anything with that. Luca, you have some fans. Jack Boy says hi. Um, Harley says, five from West learns a lot from your videos. Nick, thank you. Oh, thank you. Radio isotopics. I just noticed your BC rail layout. Where did you get the electric locomotives? They are available in a Google Drive off of the ARN forums, but I'd be hard pressed to explain how I got them. I'm working on an N scale train layout based on BC Rail's Tumbler Ridge. Stay tuned on that. We will. I know that we looked at the full scale thing in Trainz Simulator. Stay tuned. I'm working on a train layout version of that. Okay. So Elm Bridge, we're gonna put a cottage. The road's gonna kind of wrap around this way. So we're kind of treating the road as if it crosses over here, and then we have all of this embedded into the ground here, like so. And then the road's along the side. So we'll have some cottages in the corner just to fill that out. And maybe have a couple of cottages that would stick through the backdrop. This yellow line here is basically our dividing line for that. And then in terms of fields, we'll put a base layer of grass down, and then we'll add fields accordingly. I kind of want to put a field here, or I know what I want. Yeah, I know what I want to do for this part. That is going to be grassy, but we'll do a field for here. I feel like I'm going to end up shortchanging myself on fields, but we'll figure out how to. I think we'll make up for that with this section of the layout. This will be very field heavy. That's the thing. It'd be so easy to look at the Wisbech Upwell. I mean, so often people just don't even think of the route as it is. They just go, oh, Toby. But even when you look at photos of it, you think, oh, it all looks like Upwell with the yards, or it all looks like the street. But there's these nuances in it. And if you're modeling it, you learn to, especially having spent multiple years working on the train simulator version, you learn to pick up on those nuances. And once you have that knowledge, especially if you're modeling something you live near, then you know those nuances, and figuring out how to incorporate as many of those nuances as you can into a small space. That's part of the art of model railroading. So, picket fence time. Pick a fence, any fence. Pick a picket fence. Pick a pickled picket fence. I need to switch my pick list. So I'm going to change to this one. And, where is my picket fence? That is my picket fence. So we are going to start it right about here, and we're going to curve it around to about here-ish. Nah, we'll have it following to the station, which will be about here. I want to say. I want to put the station right about at the switch. About there. And our station building is going to be this. Although we're going to use a brick version of it. There we go. I think we just have brick and wood. Yes. So that is our brick station. Ah, I love how that looks. Another great benefit of being able to model in train simulators is you could use placeholder buildings. So let's say you've bought a kit, like you know you're going to use this building in this location, but you haven't actually built it. Being able to have placeholder buildings and see how things look in context, always a great benefit. So I like that we're emphasizing the curve of this through that. Let's get a different what? I think I want to use an S&C cottage for this next one. I want to do something a little bit more prominent. Lots of people figures. I want to go for something like this. I don't know. Maybe that's a bit too grand. There's some cottages like that more south of Elmbridge, but Elmbridge, they look more like this. Actually, isn't there a white one that I want to use? And I have to turn off that filter. Oh, that looks about right. Yep. And then we're going to put some forest and some disappearing road over this way. And here I'm probably just going to put some cottage fronts, and then they'll stick out of the backdrop. But we'll put the buildings in full just so that we can see what those would look like. And I want to use... which version of cottage do I want to... Because I don't want them all to be stone. Part of the interesting thing that came up in discussion with some folks with regards to modeling the tramway is what were the buildings in East Anglia made of at this time? And it's the type of thing that one wouldn't necessarily be thinking about until you're modeling it and you go, oh yeah, that's actually a pretty good question. I'm not seeing the longer buildings. We're going to end up just kind of terracing these. So we'll just have a bunch of these in a row and we'll line them up all nice and neat. We're going to try to replicate one of the... So there's... If you Google image search Wisbech and Upwell, you'll see there's this image, and it's actually the inspiration for the cover image here with the tram in front of these cottages. And that is based on a photo of the tramway in Elmbridge. Elmsbridge. Ugh. Such nuances. Such nuances that I have to remind myself. Elmbridge. In Elmbridge, so that's kind of one of the distinct scenes of the tramway that we're going to be replicating. So that's moved, and now, okay, so those are all at the same angle, which means we can line them up. They are going to go along this line here, which means they'll go about here, 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 and here. And that way, you've got this kind of nice scene where the tram can go right in front of the cottages, and it has that look like the photograph. Radioisotopics. I love modeling in ON30 since both scenes you can build are either going to be very scenic and beautiful or some of the jaggiest route you've ever seen, but it's always so real since there are real examples both of track laying. Yeah, ON30 is an interesting scale. I definitely want to cover some narrow gauge stuff on the show here at some point, especially ON30 because you can just use HO track for it. It's an easier narrow gauge to get into than, say, HON3. Okay, so this is going to be a dirt road going off into the distance. I'm probably going to do some trees and that kind of thing. This is going to be meadow here, like so. And this is also a chance for us to lower the terrain below the track just a bit. Just to give a little bit of variety so that flat isn't 100% flat. There we go. So there's just a little bit of contouring and nuance to the thing. Not to make it stand out too much. We don't want to give it the sense of it's elevated, but just a little bit of terrain imperfection, if you will. Hardest thing to do in digital is to make things look imperfect, honestly. We'll put a field here. That field's right. Oh God, I'm sorry, guys. That was bad even for me. Okay, we'll plant this kind of crop here. That looks good. Yep. Yeah, that has the right look about it. That looks very tramway. And look at how we've used this, and the other thing we'll do. It's very subtle, but we'll put some cushed bushes as a divider between those two bits. There we go. So even something as simple as a bush, just a simple bush. And now we've got a way of dividing the scene here between this scene with Newcomen Bridge and this scene with Elmbridge. And we'll accent that even more by putting some trees in the background. What kind of trees? Ooh. STRM trees. Oh, definitely some cleanse. Yeah, like so. Like nice, yeah, like that, and like that. And we'll add more nuance to that in a bit, but this is just a way of getting some initial. What else do I want to place down? Not elks. That would be a bit odd for this area. Cases, yeah. Okay. That's good for a start. Well, again, that's something that we can refine later, but just going for the kind of broad strokes here. So so now we've finished essentially one wall's worth of scenery. And we've done that in an hour, so we're doing pretty good. And this gives us some of that nice classic canal running. And this is something that you could play around with if you wanted more of the canal in the front. We're going to have some canal in the front over here, so that's why I've done it the way that I have. But you could move the bridge, or you could make it all canal running. You could have that the brewery in here. There's several ways that you could do this. For me, this is an atmosphere in between travel scene. But how you do would be up to you. But here's something that's, I think, a good takeaway from the Wisbech and Upwell, even if you aren't modeling the Wisbech and Upwell, is think about how you can use your corners as yards. Now, yes, you have to be mindful of how tight the radii are and whether you can couple and uncouple cars easily. But even with the tight radii, we still have a couple of straight sections. And the advantage is that you can then fit some good operations into corners. You don't have to waste your corners. Midland. Oh, Midland. Good to see you. Definitely hear you on the too perfect side of digital modeling, especially in trains. And sometimes it's about capturing the field look than being 100% accurate. Yes. And it's also how do you make things not look like they're perfect edges and angles, especially when it comes to weathering and so forth. And terrain texture plays into that. So this wall gives us our nice in between. This is a nice switching area. So this is going to be super detailed. Eventually, initially, we are gonna, let's add another CL cottage or two to this area. We'll put a nice small cottage over here, and I want to put something single story, just to have a little, well, although I don't know if that's, or maybe I want to use those terraced cottages that I was holding off on from earlier. I'm not sure if I do or don't, but let me see how those would look here. So much that one can play with. Other way. Do I like how that looks? I don't know. It so changes the look of it between when you have these bigger, sort of imposing cottages, which aren't bad. Not the vibe that I'm going for. But that's what's, again, nice to be able to play around with this stuff before you buy the kits or before you commit to the scratch build. Let's see. And what else do we have that could... Oh, this actually looks nice. That I could go for. Okay, so we'll place this about here, and that, to me, feels right. I might put more cottages. I might not. I'm not totally decided on what I want to do on that particular front. Because I could just have streets shooting off like here, and that, well, that might be a little odd isolated, but I think I need one more cottage. So let's just place another stone cottage like so. And then we'll switch that to grass and place it, create it. That feels right. I like how that looks. And once we put fences and detail items like that, then I think that's going to fill that out nicely. I like that. I'm curious to hear what you guys think as always, but that to me feels like Elmbridge. And it gives you enough to look at. Because obviously, this is where you're going to be switching cars. You're going to be doing a lot more here. So it's worth getting the look and feel of it right. Okay, now, admittedly, my favorite part of this build, and it might be a super easy one, but I can't deny it that this is a favorite part for me. Um, and that is a tree tunnel. So this is going to be the Inglethorpe Hall tree tunnel. So we won't actually see the hole because that's going to be in the unmodeled portion, which I'm going to actually need to. Okay, so this yellow line is our boundary. But this is going to be Inglethorpe Hall tree tunnel. I mean, if ever one needed a transition scene, this is that transition scene. The question is going to be how soon we use it in relation to Elm Bridge, because here's what I've been thinking about off camera. So I'm tempted to start it all the way at this corner, but then that's hiding this switch into the tree tunnel, which, besides the fact that that isn't realistic, I just don't know how that looks. So we're going to find out how that looks. Now, for this, I'm going to want some smaller trees, so I think I'll use these acacias as placeholders, because that's what we're going to figure out. So there's no doubt we're using trees here and here. Like that is... This much is definitely tree tunnel. And maybe that's all it is. And maybe that's as short as you would want it if you were making this layout. But we have to keep in mind that we can't... part of what I was struggling with is, and this is where the 4x8 would have been advantageous, is being able to look right down the tree tunnel. And here, your cell phone can, if you place your camera on the tracks or you lean your head this way, then you can look down the tree tunnel. But you can't from this way. So I think what we're going to end up doing for the tree tunnel is kind of having it a little bit open in the foreground, so it's like you're looking through the trees. Which, I mean, this is more the feel that I like, but the only way you can look down that is if you have it on a peninsula, and that makes it a much more complicated design. So I don't know. Maybe this is your lift out. Maybe this section is a lift out. That way you can stage photos with a preset background, and then you can get your photos looking right down the tramway. I'm not sure. But that's why we play around with it in the sim. Let's get some of these bigger cleanse for the backdrop, because that's going to feel nice and big and imposing. And again, I'll vary these a bit more for the final version. So here's where we get into what I want to do. So this corner could just be more... It could just be more of Elm Bridge, more cottages and that type of thing. But we've already decorated almost half the layout with cottages. I want the cottages to end there. We could make the tree tunnel continue through here, like so. And maybe we have this as sort of a vignette. I like this. The other option is just to make that an open field. Either way, it uses the corner effectively, because either you're going to have this sort of disappearing forest effect into the corner, or you're going to have the trees to round it out. And I'm not sure what you do. I think you could go either. This is part of the fun of experimenting, and why I love doing this with you guys. And I'm glad that you find it entertaining, because there is a sense of discovery. Like I go in with ideas about what I want to do, but then it's like, how do I actually play with this thing? Have I ever been on Ice, Thales or Tales, however you pronounce it, or TGV? Sadly, no. I really would like to, though. So hopefully sometime in the coming years, I'll get to do some of the European high-speed stuff. So this would be an open field. I think it makes the corner... Well, maybe it makes the corner too obvious. You could also say, but... Orchard! Orchard! That's what we need to do. We need to put an orchard here. Okay. That's what we need to do, ladies and gentlemen. We are going to put an orchard. Because then we can fill out that corner. and we are having trees, and it looks different. Ah, there it is. Ah, that is it right there. That is it. I mean, look at that. That is what we needed. This is the fun of pre-visualization, ladies and gentlemen. It's the ability to see what you're modeling before you actually have to commit to modeling it. And I wasn't thinking about putting an orchard there, but now that I see it, that is 100% what we need. Because I don't think that there's going to be any orchards anywhere else. I mean, maybe we'd use it as a transition here, but I just like how it looks there. And I think it works to transition from these lower trees to then slowly getting into these bigger tree tunnel trees. That looks right. That looks and that feels right. And we're going to confirm that by putting some backdrops in. So let's put some backdrops in, and that'll give us some sense too about what we're doing as far as the backdrops for here. At some point I should make some backdrops for farms in Trainz, because there aren't really that many to work with at the moment. I was actually using this one on the route proper and then realized that it kind of wasn't necessary. It looked, I mean, this is low pixel, so yeah, I'm probably gonna, I have some photos of farmland, so at some point I will turn them into Trainz backdrops, because I think that's just gonna look better than that, but gives us something to work with. Okay. And then we put another one here. I also don't like the fact that they cast shadows. I could turn that off later, eventually. But, okay, that has to go to about there. And then we put that down to about there. Yeah, that looks right. And we'll raise this up just to kind of make the tops meet. This isn't perfect, but it gives you a sense of what we're going for. That, I am happy with that. It's so satisfying to be able to do a thing and they go, yeah, I'm happy with the thing that I did. Yeah, that looks nice. What do you guys think? Should I put Trevor the Traction Engine in here as well? Like, really amp up the Thomas flavor? Because I could download Trevor and stick him in here. That could be kind of funny. Actually, I have Trevor's. I can't. I got this from. No, not that. This is from one of the old SI3D routes. So I can't put it in here because this isn't. I don't think this is publicly available anymore. But I mean, it looks cool. It looks cool. Okay, we'll get rid of that for the time being. Communal well somewhere down there. Oh, no. Maybe that's a super detailing thing. But I'm also remembering another thing I said I'd do. But I'm also knowing where I would do that. So, okay. So broad strokes, we've got our orchard, we've got our tree tunnel, and oh, I love that. I love that. So nice to when you're puzzling through something, going, how do I want to model this? How do I want to do this? And then the idea comes to you, you're like, of course, that's what I wanted to do. Oh, that's the benefits of pre-visualization. Oh, speaking of pre-visualization, some good news to report to you guys. Railroad Model Craftsman is running an article about the work that we do on Great Train Layouts Live with building train layouts, specifically the Mountain route that I've released eons ago on the download station, and I'm going to be putting it on greattrainlayouts.com. But the cool thing is that we're going to have a train sim featured in a model railroading magazine. So I forget which issue it is. It's their 90th anniversary special, I think, that they're doing this article. And so they're talking about this layout that I pre-visualized along with the guy who built the real thing. So there's one person who made the track plan, and then I did a previs of it, and then this other guy, the same guy who actually made the Murky Omen route, which I did a What Makes This Layout Great video of close to a year ago. he's making the HO scale version of that. So, Train Sims and Model Railroading Magazine. Look for it on your newsstand. Railroad Model Craftsman coming soon to a newsstand near you. Okay, so that makes me really happy. Obviously, we'll need more bushes and detail, but broad strokes. We've got 40 minutes to go, and I want to make sure we at least get the big scenic elements in here. And then a lot of super detailing I'll do probably off stream. This is where we get to do designated right of way. This is going to be Upwell Basin. And this, fortunately, I actually have a really good sense of what I want to do here. This is not going to be too mysterious, shall we say. So I'm going to put the fascia about here. No, that feels too deep. About here. And what we're going to do is we're going to put the canal in the foreground this time. So, yeah, that feels about right. I'm going to try to save a little bit of time at the end of the stream as well for playing. I mean, yes, we did a lot of playing on the full size thing, but I'd like to do a little bit of loop-the-loop kind of thing, so we'll see what time allows for it. But this is not going to be too mysterious. So this, we're going to do canal. I don't think we're going to make it as deep as this part of the canal. We're going to make it maybe more like -3, I think, in terms of the height. Turn up the sensitivity. And then we'll change the water level accordingly. Now here it lines up really nicely as far as what I want to do. And I think that... Now, this is also where you could get into, do I do it this way or do I do it that way? So as you'll recall from the full-scale Wisbech and Upwell, there is a bridge right after Upwell Basin. The basin name actually comes from the fact that that's where they would turn canal boats. And then there's a bridge going over the basin. So we could have a bridge here and then the canal disappears into the corner. I don't want to do that because we've had a lot of canal and I want to do something different for this section. And we've also had a bridge, technically 2 bridges already. So I'm trying to balance all of these elements in terms of not having too much, not having too much of any one thing. I really want it to feel like a proper mixture of all these different elements. So here we go. Okay, so it's just going to kind of make a cameo appearance, essentially. It's going to come in, and then it's immediately going to go out. But this way we get a little bit of the canal in the foreground. Oh, I should have mentioned, too, as far as, thinking about the canal, please tell me. Yes. Sometimes I randomly think I need to be on the right ladder. You could extend the canal that way and then have it disappear over here. And that would be another way of treating the canal in this part of the scene. But we are just going to have the canal over here. We are going to set it to here and here, and then we're going to need to adjust the height to like -2.8 or something along those lines. -2.8, use height, and bada bing, bada boom. Is anybody out of curiosity watching me while listening to classical music? I'm curious to know if folks dig that kind of thing or not. I was afraid some people wouldn't dig it for the main At the Rail Yard review either, but I love classical music. There we go. There's a good question for you. Name your favorite classical music composer. Vivaldi's my man. I'm biased too. My middle name is Anthony, and that was partially named after. I was named after Antonio Vivaldi in that regard, as well as Saint Anthony for the ability to find things. Although I'm actually really bad at losing things. But Antonio Vivaldi. So that's why Four Seasons is my thing. But also I love his Gloria. Bach, Mozart are also, OGs. But curious if you guys listen to classical music and if you have any particular favorites. A new favorite of mine, somebody who I've come to appreciate in recent history, is Debussy. Clair de Lune. You've probably heard. You've probably heard. Oh, I'm forgetting the name of it. But if you've watched Westworld, there's a piano song that appears there. Reverie, I want to say it is. Um, and honestly, building. Oh man, I part of why I'm already looking at what is the next thing I'm going to build, as far as a as far as a route, is because working on the Wisbech and Upwell at times was a mood. It's hard to encapsulate it. It's really hard to explain why it was a mood, but I loved I spending hours marking out the fields and painting them and just listening to classical music from all sorts of composers. It was a very calming space. And maybe you find that in your own layout building. You'll put on a nice podcast or some music that you really like, and you just love the atmosphere of being in that. Because now, when I look back at having built the tramway, there's a nostalgia that I feel for having built it. And I can't really articulate why that is. It's something that I'm going to treasure the process of building that. I'm almost sorry to call it done, but I'm also not, because I'm so happy to be able to share it with you guys. And hope that you guys enjoy playing with it. It's a fun it was a fun project. It was a really fun project, and I hope that it gets you more interested in the history of the real thing. I'd love to see if somebody does an adaptation of the first Toby the Tram Engine story using that route. Oh, go to town, have fun with it. Friends of Frankfurt and Cincinnati. I put on the Roundhouse for a lot of my builds. Good choice. Thank you. Appreciate it. Ron Paladin. I listened to Thomas Bergerson while somebody gave it. Mr. Two Steps from Hell. Yes, good choice of music. Oh, I love Two Steps from Hell. Okay. Now we're getting into some decision-making territory. And what do we want to do here? So I think this is it's tempting to say, well, make it thicker, but I don't think it needs that quite. But I think we could still capture the idea that there are fields over here. Oh, the shadows are so distracting, but we'll get around that in a moment. Because I'm going to put PBR field, and I'm going to select a field that looks like, not that one. Some of them I like better than others. Yeah, that one. And we're going to turn it this way. I want to replicate that cabbage field. My cabbage is... bonus points to whoever can name that reference. Yeah, I'm going to have to delete the backdrop because it's too distracting with the shadow. We can still tell that this is the edge of it. That'll be good enough. So we've got the plowed field here, and then we'll need to add some, what are we going to need to add? Fencing. But let me see if I can find the cabbages first. Maybe it was some other, because that's nice. But actually, they weren't cabbages now. What? Maybe carrots? Allotments of carrots. I don't know. Not what I was thinking of, but I think yeah, I could live with that. That looks right. Okay. And it's thin enough. I might replace that with another crop at another point, but that will work for now. Oh, wait, that's interesting. No? Interesting. Okay. So we've got these fields of carrots. And that'll take up pretty much the entirety of that space. Yeah, that looks good. And then we'll need a fence. Gee, I wonder how many fences I have installed. The answer is probably too many. I think it's, isn't it? Oh, wait. CL fence. Yeah, that'll work. Although I was looking for something with maybe more of fence posts. I don't know. That feels more like a garden fence. But this one doesn't look that bad. If I could find a destroyed cabbage stand, that would be amazing. Uh, I mean maybe that should be my great train layout. Another great train layouts live build is constructed Bossing Say the aerial stone power railways that they had there. That could be a really cool build. Be sort of interesting to do something so specifically fantasy based too. Okay, that's looking nice, and that's looking right. We need some buffers for this track. Let's see. Yeah, that'll work. And then now, okay, in the actual village, there's the destroyed car, which is kind of a landmark, but I also kind of ran out of room to put the dang thing. But we could let's push this track a little bit further out, and then we'll have room for it. Yeah, if we put the track here, then I think we have room for that carriage. We could probably squeeze it in here. It's tight. You don't really have a lot of room to move vehicles around it, but it's such a defining element of what's there. I think, again, in the spirit of, where is it? GR. Yeah. So in the spirit of expediency, we will just use a van body, but now we have that grounded van body that is in place. Now you have your passenger station. I'm glad you like that, Virtual Railroad Academy. Not sure which that you're referring to, but I'm glad that you like that, whatever that is. And then there's a shed at the end of this, which is actually pretty similar to this one, which makes me think I'm going to actually move this one. I'm going to use this one over here because this is a bit bigger for our quote-unquote passenger station. Oh, yes, Avatar Studios. Yeah. Definitely an Avatar fan. Still working my way through Korra. And it'd be interesting to see what they do in the long run. Sometime, one of these days, we've got to talk more about world building. I think occasionally we talk about it in the context of train layouts. But maybe the next fictional build, I'll try to work in something fictional. We'll talk about world building and that kind of aspect of things, because there's definitely world building in model railroading. Even if you're modeling something realistic, truth be told, you're still making creative decisions about what parts of the story you're telling. So, okay, we need to move that fence out so it doesn't just completely honker blanc the track. Is honker blanc a word? It is now. Yeah, that looks right. That makes me happy. Keeping in mind that based on how I've designed it, granted, this could be built in a very open space, in which case you could view it from either side. But it's designed to be viewed this way, and that feels like a scene. Last thing we're going to do before we move on to the final corners is we're going to add some bushes and shrubs. I think I want to use the zoo bushes for this. Definitely want to use the zoot grass, which we also used earlier for this. Like so. Is that the... Oh, nope, that's the thicker one. This is the thinner one. Yeah, so we'll delete that and move this here. We'll take that and rewind it back. I've got the beat to make the grass go eh. If you got that reference, thank you. And then we're going to just add some bushes. Now, there are spline bushes. Bush. Maybe that'll work for what we're trying to do here. I mean, part of the trick with splines is that then they look very repetitive. So I kind of want to... Let's just get a bunch of cusps. I think that's going to look better. And that won't take too long. Why is... No, I'm not trying to place a thing. I'm trying to delete a thing. Thank you. Okay, so we'll place some random ones of these, and then some random ones of these that will shrink down to like, yay! And then that looks cool. Oh, and I deleted the grass that I so carefully placed. Darn it. Of course. We'll come back to that. And I want some of that, because that looks nice. Yeah. I think we'll leave it at that for the time being, because you could kind of see what we're going for. We've still got one corner to attend to, but this is... Here's the ultimate thing that we're going for vibe-wise here is that this is a station, but we're clearly not in a town. And this is another reason why I chose this. I bet some of you were looking at Outwell Village with all that complicated siding work and going, why didn't you put Outwell Village in here? And one could. It actually fits really well. I measured it in the sim, and it's about 3 feet long from switch to siding. It's really compact. It would lend itself. So why did I not choose to put it? Because we've already got populated areas. We have Elmbridge over here that feels... that's very much a town. And then we have kind of the outer edge of Wisbech with the cottages here. We have enough sense of population. I really wanted to make sure that we got the in-between... the sort of in-between sections. That sense of space and expansion. And I just... There's something I like about Outwell Basin. There's a nice atmosphere to it. So that, and the other reason I didn't choose to is because there's at least one, if not two, layouts that are in existence that model just Outwell Village. So that as a train layout has already been done. So I don't feel like I'm exploring something new if I'm doing Outwell Village as a layout. That's been done. It's been done really well. And I would urge you, and if you go to YouTube and search Wisbech Upwell, you can see video of at least one of those layouts, and it's really well done. But yeah, it's been done. So that's why I did not do Outwell Village. So we are now, what I'm going to say, 3/4 of the way there, which is perfect. We're at 9:38. And we take a look at what we've done. We've now got Elmbridge going into the orchard, going into the tree tunnel. I actually, from the side, that looks okay. I think that's not a bad way to be able to appreciate that. And then we go into Outwell Basin here. So if we take a look at what the larger picture of this is from a wide angle, like already we have something that feels like we've got these different nuances of the Wisbech and Upwell Tramway in this very small space, because this isn't super big. 6 by 10 feet, not a big space. But we have the road running. We've got the bridge. We've got town with switching. We've got Inglethorpe Hall with the tree tunnel, and now we're really out in the middle of the fens, trying to get all these nuances in a single design, and making them feel simultaneously cohesive, like they belong together, but giving you that range of scene. So our last challenge for today is what we are going to do with this. Now, we talked about the idea of what would actually be the lift out. And I'm not going to worry about it at this point because I feel like this could technically be the lift out. This could be the lift out. This could be the lift out. Or they could be duck under. Who knows? We're doing this for a hypothetical space, after all. So it becomes a question of what do we want to do? And the thing that I thought of earlier that I said, let's put a pin in it, and we're coming back to it now, is windmill, windmill for the land, turn forever hand in hand. Although probably not that specific one. Interesting that it shows it animating here. Maybe it animates when you run it in the sim. Oh yeah, there it is. But not that specific one, because that's another. I have a bunch of these assets from when there used to be an Island of Sodor route available for download that now these things aren't, which is too bad because the 3D modeling on them is nice. But let us pull up our windmill options, because it's not clear to me which windmills were still standing by the time that the tramway was in existence. But I feel very strongly that it's a thing that I want. So that is one model. I'm trying to look for the other model that I had. Oh, this is the other model. So this is what I used on the tramway route itself. Which do I like better in actual close-up? Which one? I don't know which one is a Dutch windmill, Rico. Are you talking about the Thomas one? Could be. My knowledge of windmills is not particularly large. Windmill preference. Put your votes in for your windmill preference. Do you prefer? Let's call this brown or black? Let me know, and we'll work around that. So I like the idea. I want to put a windmill in the corner, and then in the foreground, just do some fields. Because for all of the agriculture that the line sees, we actually don't have a lot of fields. So let's do something about that. And we're going to keep this as a designated right-of-way bit of the tramway. I like, because we have so much of it that is in the street, I like having this as designated tramway. Seeing a lot of votes for brown. Keep the votes coming in. So we're going to do designated tramway on this, and we're going to do fields in the foreground. So let's just start by getting our base. We'll just do our base grass in place first, then we'll add ballast, and then we'll add fields. So our corner goes to, I'm going to say here. And here. This is our grass mat version of our layout. Yay, we got out of the Plyboard Express phase of our layout. Okay, I kind of don't do messing things up there. Cat cameo number 2. Seeing a lot of votes for brown, so we're going to go for the brown. That is what we are going to do. So we're going to put that as far back, and truth be told, this is where you could get in, if you were modeling this for real, you could have fun with perspective. You could make that an N-scale windmill and try to do a forced perspective thing to make it feel like you're looking really far in the distance. We could do that only if we made our own version of the windmill, so we're just going to have it be full size. But it kind of has that, there's a shot in the Thomas episode about Toby where Toby's traveling in front of a windmill. And even though there's nowhere on the tramway where the windmills are that close to the tracks, it is a nice scene. I do like it it still feels uncharacteristic with the route, so Man, Rico, I'm impressed by your knowledge of windmills. Um, but you got that voted in terms. Brown took the vote, so even if this is not accurate for the UK, that's what we're gonna go with for here. Does it spin? I hope it's. Yes, it spins. Okay. Windmill, windmill. Okay, enough with the gorillas. But I couldn't resist. You guys know I like my singing. You guys know me for my singing, and you respect me for my singing. And I appreciate that. Okay, so foreground. Do I want to do field? Probably. Let's see what background with field looks like. I think we're going to end up doing a field at kind of an angle so that the windmill can be on its own little island, if you will. So PBR field is going to be, let's see, whatever the heck this is. That might be a little too bright. I like this crop. We're going to do whatever this crop is. That's too dark. There we go. That. Planted at an angle. Other way. And it goes like this. It won't be able to go all the way to there because we need some room for the road to curve out. We're going to have the ballast coming through here. And then, yeah, about like so. Just to kind of give the sense that this could disappear. Let's also get some of this dirt texture 23 stuff. Get that texture and then use that for here. Yeah, like so. That looks and feels right. And then we'll add some grass there. Yep. But we need some fences. We actually, I think we need some fences. We need some bushes because there's something about it. Just it looks so painfully obvious that it's flat. We need something to vary the elevation. Maybe even a tree, like just a lone standing tree, could be a nice scenic feature. See, this is where I was thinking you could put an orchard in this corner as well, and it would look good, but I like the challenge of putting a windmill. And I do think it's a bit of a challenge because it is such a distinct landmark. It is almost overpowering. So I think we need to see how we could kind of work it into the landscape in a way that's not drawing so much attention to itself. Wood fences. Let's go back to those CL fences. Like, actually, that would be good for this. Like that. Yep. Yeah, like that. Yep. Okay, and then we need... See, that looks... I mean, they definitely have that style of fencing, but it looks American. Actually, I think I want to go bushes. I think I want to go bushes on this. So let us try some bushes because I think we just really need to divide that off as best we can so it feels like it is something completely removed and completely separated. I mean, you're going to see it no matter what. Like, you look down that way and you are going to see it. But it's also true that you're not going to be looking down this angle. If you're running it, your head's not going to be here. It's going to be over here. So in a way, if your attention is focused to this part of the layout, you're not really paying attention to that windmill. So I don't think that matters too much that it is so domineering if seen this way. And maybe you want it to be. I mean, that's part of the prerogative that you have as a modeler is to be able to choose if you deliberately do want something to be that stand out that much. And we'll do that. We'll put some dirt in here. No, not there. Actually, I want mud. What do I want? Oh, wait, that. I want the thing that disappeared. But had it, the thing that I had, but that I don't have anymore. Looking for kind of a muddier grass type of feel. That's an interesting look. Not quite what I'm going for. How about this? Oh, yeah, there we go. That's kind of what I'm looking for. Okay, so we've got this field here, and then I feel like we need some more hedges to divide that off and then do one more field along this strip, which kind of ties into the fact that I wanted to do a swamp here. At least I think it's a swamp as far as the scene coming out of Wisbech. I mean, here too, it could be another you could do an orchard, you could do another field. It lends itself to a few different things. You could do nothing. Like this could be just your where you need to have your door open, and so it's a lift gate, and there is no scenery. But in the spirit of putting as much scenery in here as we can, I feel. I'm tempted to do another orchard, but somehow I feel like that's cheating myself. Maybe I'll do another field with some sort of 3-dimensional crop, kind of like I did with the carrots. We've got leeks. We got spinach. That's what I was looking for earlier. Okay, spinach. And actually, that looks pretty nice. So I'm kind of inclined to do that. I don't know, though. I mean, it looks good. And then that would some other field in the back, maybe? Question mark? Not that one. Not that one. Sure, we'll do that one. Or we'll do this one. But we'll square it up so it is going that way. And we'll need some ballast aggregate to go along the tramway there. Make sure it doesn't do funky things with our ballast. I don't know. It feels like it needs something. I mean, I could do more a canal there too, but is spinach is Popeye the tram? Is Popeye the tram operator a local resident? He might be. I'm interested to hear what you guys think as far as what I should put here. Let's. I think it's safe to say we should put another field in. Here. Oh, I like these strawberries. That's a cute little close-up detail. We'll do it this way to kind of allude to the idea that the field is bigger than one we actually see. And we'll slope the land up just a wee bit. Kind of going for that, the area east where it's of Outwell Village, where it's going along the oh, I know what would be good. Yeah, so what I'm maybe the thing to do is to put this into bushes. So you're actually not really going to have much of a field at all, but that way you get more of a sense of that there's separation. I like that. I think I like that more because then it makes it look less square. Gives it more contour because we don't have contour of landscape. And we can't really add that without kind of significantly changing the feel of this thing. I feel comfortable with that. It's not a perfect solution, but I think I'm comfortable enough with that. And then we can add some lower bushes along the front too, and then put a fence, and that'll be the sort of the foreground to the tram. And we can continue to, so we've got this grass here, and we'll make sure that stays straight so that then we could just add grass that curves along the edges here. Yeah. Yeah, that looks better. And then we're coming down to the wire with this one. What do we want to do? Do we want to do forest? Or not forest? Hmm. I would say, because it just feels too flat otherwise. I mean, now other options we could put like your backdrop could be Wisbech East, so you'd have distant cottages kind of thing going on. Um, maybe there's nothing wrong with fields. Maybe I am overthinking this. I think I'm going to say I'm overthinking this, partially because I do want to play with this a wee bit before we sign off for the night. So I'm just going to install some fencing. No offense. Tee hee. Feel free to laugh at your leisure. Or not. Your choice. We're going to put fence here. And then contour it around this way. Like so. And then it will have appeared somewhere around here, thereabouts. I'm almost inclined to just say it goes all the way down this strip. That would certainly make sense since it is its own right. Yeah, that looks good. I'm happy with that. I'm even happy with how the windmill looks in context. And you could say, but wouldn't this tree be blocking the wind? Yes, it would. But sometimes you're allowed to make illogical features on a layout for the sake of it looks good. And that's what we're doing here. And then we're just going to continue that fencing and that designated right of way in the spirit of Wisbech East. And you could always freelance things too, as far as you could have your engine facilities here. Like you could throw a switch and have your engine facilities in this corner. That would be kind of an interesting approach, honestly, if you did that. So you'd have somewhere to park your trams and service your trams in the context of the route. I thank you for the appreciation for the bad dad joke. You guys are awesome as always. No, I don't think that's actually as bad as I feared. Is it kind of straightforward? Yeah, but nothing wrong with straightforward. We are going to call that good, and we are going to do a little bit of play testing with this. I think the time has come. So last thing I'm going to do, and then I am really going to call it a day for tonight. Well, not calling it a day, but last thing I'm going to do before if we do the play testing is we're going to take some of this grass and we're just going to fill this corner here. And we're going to fill this bit here. And in reality, and I also want to put a tree here. I want a nice, what do I want? Let's just put an oak. A nice oak tree. Tree oak 3. Oh. Maybe a bit too. Oof. Closer? I actually want a little bit bigger than that. Maybe a maple? Closer. We'll use that as our placeholder. I like having a tree on the corner, though, because it distracts from the fact that it is a corner. And it's a nice, even though it's one single tree, goes a long way to making these scenes feel like they're divided. So there you have it. This is again, the broad strokes version. There will be a lot of playing around with this before we do the actual release of the route, the layout. But this is our cute little Wisbech and Upwell in a 6x10 foot space. mapping out the basic components of it in terms of being able to get everything from the in-road running, New Common Bridge, one of the towns where you're switching in the town, one of the designated right-of-way spots. Let's have some fun. Let's put some trains down. Let's have some fun. Let's also save this, because I haven't saved this at all this evening, and I would hate to lose all this progress. We're going to run a passenger tram. We're going to keep this easy, because we are at 10 o'clock, and I don't want this to be too late. So we are going to replicate this as if we were running a passenger service, which fits with today's sponsor, Rapido Trains UK. Again, link in the description for their Wisbech and Upwell tram packs. You'll definitely want to check those out, and you'll want to get your pre-orders in before February 6th. So we are going to go with, I want to go with C53 on this, and we're going to have it start facing backwards because we're going to back it out onto the tramway just like the freight services do. It works. C53, and then I modified a couple of the public coaches. So we're really going to go for that full Henrietta vibe and use, well, those are LNER. Then I'll need an LNER tram. We'll do an LNER tram. We could do that rather than the... So J70, give me an LNER tram. 7126, sure. Okay, so we're going to run a passenger service because that's a nice way to just be able to appreciate the train in the context of the scene, and we'll throw some wagons around for good measure. GER, we're going to put some goods wagons here, and we'll put a coal wagon there just to have some variety. And then we'll have some covered vans in the siding here. Yep, I am happy with that. Oh, and we'll delete the 2 tracks here and here. Okay, time to do some playtesting. Here we go. So this is us. I have no idea where that whistle came from. Sorry, guys. You know, maybe we need to work with that C53 tram after all, because I clearly have not reassigned the sounds on this, and I need a bell. I need a proper bell. C53. Here we go. Okay. Take 2. So this is us backing out onto the tramway. Toby's theme intensifies. I could get Toby out here. Maybe we'll do the return trip with Toby for the sake of it. Going full circle. Y'all have been wanting Toby. We'll do real Toby for the return trip. But for the purists, for those who want to get a sense of what a passenger service looks like. Oops, I forgot to change the switch on that. We're gonna fast forward, because backing up isn't as exciting as going forward. Okay, now we are lined for the tramway, and now we are going to go on the tramway. And we're also going to make sure our switches are set, because if I know me, I would have a switch set for a siding. Oh, I don't have a... No, I have a switch stand there. There we go. Okay, we're good. Here we go. So, trying to appreciate this layout as much as we can from the outside angles. And see what this would look like. And we'll try to play it as if it was HO rather than going super close in. We're gonna treat this as an HO scale model. Here we'll get set up at New Common Bridge. Here we are entering Elm Bridge. which I'm really happy with how that turned out. And it's just so cute. Like, this is the thing, is that even if you made a layout that was just one of these towns, you have such a cute scene, and the trams move so slowly anyway, it really gives you a time to appreciate being able to use the trams. So we'll briefly stop for our... We'll switch the position of the sun over so we have better lighting for this side. You can see what that looks like better. And we'll stop so that we can pick up and drop off our passengers. Oh, that orchard is the best discovery we made today. That orchard makes me so happy. And now, my favorite part, Inglethorpe Hall with the tree tunnel. I can't help but cheat here. I gotta look down the... Like, yeah, that's nice. I'm happy with that. So this is a cell phone photo. But even if we look at it from the outside, you still really get that sense of a tight fit. Now here we're looking against the sun. One of the not so great elements of Trainz is because the sun can be very directional, you get things in shadow, and it does kind of affect the quality of the scene here. But overall, I think this looks still nice. You can still tell where it's... Yeah, especially if we look at it from this way, you can see what we're going for. We've got the canal, we've got the tram on its designated right-of-way in the background. And now we can run around our cars, having made our second station stop. Also could be a place where if you were trying to simulate a full run to Upwell, rather than turning around here, then you would just keep going down the line and you'd go off into your staging yard. And that could be, so a layout like this, even though it's 6x10, you've got, now technically on the tramway, the trams always met at Boyce's Bridge, which we haven't modeled, but here you could have them pass here at Outwell Basin, or you could have them pass here at Elmbridge. And, you know, this is one of the reasons why there's something to be said for modeling a smaller prototype, is that you have the ability to get these really tight curves. Even with North American stuff, if you say, I'm going to model, say, Civil War era with really short rolling stock, or pre-1900s, even post, but you're using short wheelbase stuff and short trains, you can fit in a lot of operations without needing to have a lot of space. Because this is 6x10. This is not big. If you could fit a 4x8, you can fit a 6x10. You should put a little carousel in the orchard so it could be like a summer festival. Maybe I'll do that in Elmbridge, because Elmbridge is feeling kind of empty. So, because the orchard itself actually feels pretty full. So I think I'm gonna leave that where it is. And because I want to leave this episode on a particular high note, I've heard the requests. I know what everybody wants. We've been dancing around it all night, and we shall dance around it no longer. We are going to have Toby. We have the Toby. And just so that the tram coaches, or I don't have the actual Henrietta's, that's right. Never mind. So Henrietta is a bit short in this case, but no matter. We are running Toby. I know this is what you wanted. You can't pretend like you didn't want this. Oh, except we don't have any engineer on Toby, so we need to fix that. Okay. Now we have an engineer on Toby. And yes, Toby's eyes move. You got to give credit to the Thomas fans who model for Trainz. They make some really good models. Okay, here we go. I know you all have been waiting for this. We talked about Toby. We needed to have Toby make an appearance, at least at the very end. Sounds really bad with the Doppler. Oh. Okay. Okay, we had to get Toby in there. I mean, cause yeah, like, okay, so it's Toby, but whoever modeled this did a really nice job. Like, that is a legit nice 3D model. You can't deny it. Okay, so let's put let's put an actual J70 back on that. Let's end it in an interesting way. Actually, let's put a class 04. This would have never happened in real life, but you know, we haven't had this part of the show yet, so we'll do this for fun's sake. We've got the real life Mavis. And you know, if it's your model railroad, you get to run it the way you want. You get to mix and match the power that you want. So, yes, the diesels didn't come until 25 years after passengers disappeared, but we get to have fun. And you know, even for like, it might be a diesel, but there's something really charming about the look of a Class 4 with its cowcatcher and side plates. Crossing New Common Bridge. So we're coming near the end of things, guys, so I want to get your feedback. What did you think of this episode in terms of looking at something in a train simulator, the real-life version of it, and then building a layout? Most of the time, we're going to be sticking with the layout builds, but I'm just curious to know what you thought of this as a change of pace, because this was a fun one to do. I hope you've had it, at least, I hope you've enjoyed it as much as I've enjoyed making it. Yeah, I think they've announced these, like, they haven't put them into production yet, and there's no pre-orders for them, but I'm pretty sure Rapido Trains UK is actually making the Class 04s, both with and without the cow catchers and side plates, so, yeah, be prepared to see these return on the show at some point. But I hope that that this has been beneficial, because the goal is, I mean, yes, we've been talking Wisbech and Upwell, and we've talked a lot about its real history and how you can model it for the sim. But the goal is for you to be able to... Oh, actually, that's a nice scene. You know, I wasn't sure about that windmill, but when I look at it from here, I'm like, no, that looks good. I'm really happy with that. Let's switch the sun over, though, because the sun's kind of on the wrong side to be able to fully appreciate that scene. But yeah, even amongst us talking about Wisbech and Upwell, hopefully you've seen things that you think can apply to your own layout and your own model railroading. Again, the link, the Wisbech and Upwell Tramway, the full thing is going to be available on the download station. Just search Wisbech Upwell through your content manager for both Trainz: A New Era and Trainz Railroad Simulator 19, and you'll be able to download them. But I really appreciate you guys tuning in and being part of this. And we're coming up on a full year of Great Train Layouts Live, and it's been a lot of fun to do this, and I'm glad to see you guys are getting things out of it. If you have ideas, suggestions, things you want to see, let me know. If you're building a layout and you feel like this type of pre-visualization, not my cat, but this type of pre-visualization would help you, reach out to me at greattrainlayouts.com. You can contact me through there, and I'd be happy to work with you, especially if you'd love to have your build live streamed. I'd be more than happy to work with you in one way or another to help you get beyond your layout builder's block and figure out how to design the scenery that you want to make the perfect layout that you are going to enjoy, and to be able to play test it. Goal of all of this is to have fun. Luca, stop chewing that. Goal is to be able to have fun, and I've certainly had that today. I hope you guys have as well. Thank you all for tuning in. Thank you for the feedback. Thank you to Rapido Trainz UK for sponsoring this episode. And to everyone, I wish you a good night. Take care.